but what would that be like if you just put a camera on Killian's face?
Right.
And what would that give you? And how would that kidnap people around the world? That it's not just about an action scene or an explosion, it's about a face.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
Hi, I'm Javier Ibarreche from Spoiler Time, and I'm here with Emily Blunt and Matt Damon from the movie Oppenheimer. How you guys doing?
Great, how you doing?
How are you?
All good. I want to ask you right away, we remember Oppenheimer as a scientist, but he was also a politician and a human being. And your characters somehow represent each of those sides of Oppenheimer, the politician and the human being. How did you work that with each other or through the work of Killian's character? Tell me a little bit about the process with that.
I feel like the script was so informative in that way and transporting, and I think I realized that my role in this was to, yes, as you say, explore the humanity, the intimacy of this character. What's he like when the sky goes dark? Like, what's this guy like? What's it like being married to him? And the scenes were so electric and sort of at times explosive between her and Oppenheimer. So it was a great character. It was a very, very complicated marriage. And I think even in the few scenes that we have, which aren't many, I always felt they packed this sort of emotional punch when I read the script. And it was beautiful to explore that side of this character.
Right.
Yeah, similar to M, this is very much about Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah.
And Chris said that from the outset. He said this entire thing is being put on Killian's back, and so the supporting characters are there to tease out these other sides of him, and help explore that man. And
So you see the full spectrum of him, really.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I couldn't help but see Oppenheimer as kind of like a film director, coordinating the work of other, sometimes more specialized scientists.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to be a part of this movie while playing characters who were also part of a really big project?
Well, it's funny because you can relate in some ways, right? There's kind of a one-to-one correlation just emotionally to doing kind of project-based work all together and having different specialties. So it definitely was a good way in to kind of explore the characters for me. But again, it was all about. In my case, it was about the tension between the military and the scientists, because that was this natural tension. The military was obsessed with compartmentalization and secrecy because, they didn't want this stuff to get out, and the scientists were about openness and sharing information so that they could get to the truth of the matter. And so there was that kind of inherent tension there, and that was really my role to kind of play into that.
Okay. Emily, you said, I read you said in a previous interview that it seems as if Nolan Trojan horsed the biopic into a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the script goes, how did you approach it? As a biopic, as a thriller, do you think about genre when you get a script?
I don't think about genre that much. And actually, I was still, I didn't realize how bone-shattering the whole thing would feel when you watched it, and I was so arrested by it when I watched it for the first time. I watched it with Robert Downey, and I was so emotional watching it because it was nightmarish at times. It was like a horror movie and a rock concert, and it's so much more than a biopic. But I did feel when I read it for the first time, I was like, this is not a dusty old account of one man's life. This is like a pulse racing, like it was sort of a very propulsive thriller. It kind of read like that. There was something Vice-like in its grip that it had on me even reading it. But to experience it and watch it reflected back at us after this amazing experience was wild.
Right. Speaking about that horror factor, these scientists were gambling with mankind. Like there was like a tiny possibility that mankind would have been over that day in the Trinity test. Yeah. But it felt necessary at the time to do that test. Would you have personally made a bet that big?
There's not a bigger bet to be made.
Oh.
That's absolute madness.
That's absolute madness.
Absolute madness. Like,
that there was a possibility that in order to save the world, you could destroy it. Like, destroy it completely.
Yeah.
Like, actually destroy it.
Gone.
I want to hear, like, your perspective about that, because the terrible possibility seems to be, like, the factor that drives the whole movie and is the core of it.
I think it was, and you could ask Chris this, he'd be better to answer it, but I think that's the reason he made the movie. I don't think that's how does one push a button when they know that there's any chance at all? The stakes are with like a full species annihilation.
There
Like,
are no bigger stakes.
you know, it's like, who cares about countries and you know what I mean? Like, these are all things that we made up. You know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely unconscionable to me. And so, but I think that was the question that dogged Chris and got him fascinated with the subject to start with.
Right.
He'd be the one to ask.
I'd love to ask him as well. And I'm interested in an actor's perspective on this. The movie was shot in IMAX, right? The biggest cameras that are usually saved for spectacle and grandeur.
Right.
Yet this is a very intimate, very human tale. As far as the work of an actor goes, how do you deal with that contrast? You know, the intimate tone versus the grandeur of the production.
I mean, I think that's Chris's greatest skill. He's able to capture that duality in his films of this vastness, and yet the relationships are beautiful and intimate. So I think for us, everyone's asked us about the massive IMAX cameras, and they ceased to exist. They were not, I don't remember them being that visible. It was such a focused, intimate set. There's nothing declamatory about the way Chris works, and I think everything was quite casual, and like, okay, so we discussed it. All right, let's just give it a go. Okay, we're gonna give it a go. And
It feels that casual.
It feels so casual. So you're you sort of shape shift into the scene without knowing it. It's not really. It doesn't feel big.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and it feels very careful and non-chaotic. It's wonderful, and I think that he wanted to explore the idea of these cameras that capture everything. They capture everything for the audience, but what would that be like if you just put a camera on Cillian's face?
Right.
And what would that give you? And how would that kidnap people around the world? That it's not just about an action scene or an explosion, it's about a face. And it's just such an exciting idea, and we haven't seen it.
Right. Well, guys, that's pretty much my time.
Thank
you so
you.
much. And
Man,
again,
thanks.
congratulations for the movie.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so much, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
Truman needs to know what's next.
2,
What's next?
1.